Shalom, sweet people. I am Maker Strong. My Maker makes me strong. And I'm jumping on here just to talk to you guys a little bit more about that shadow work that I was talking about in the previous videos. Um, I wanted to do that because this subject matter is very important, and I think this is really the essential part of how celibacy can be easy. So before I jump into that, I'm still doing shadow work on myself. And one of the things I want to do is promote myself more. This is a book, it's about 3 months old. Yeah, I think I published about 3 months ago. And it's on Amazon called The Shaman's Gate. It's a story about a family. All right. I don't want to give too much away, but it is. You guys have probably seen at least a few of the reels that I put out, and if not, you'll see some on YouTube here. But it's the shaman and his daughters run away, and he has to go and get them. I don't want to say too much more than that. But all right, so let's talk about this whole journey because I guess I can tie that into my writing. All right. For me, when the pandemic hit, I was in Tennessee and I have lots of stories. Like, guys, I've got stories written in places that I've been writing since I was a child. Like a child. When I could pick up a pencil and write, I was writing stories. Okay. Um, and so I have a lot of stories that I wrote a long time ago, and the pandemic kind of slowed me down. And I was still working, actually. I was working online for the first time. And I found myself being in the house and, just had this kind of energy to go for it. I had that feeling like, you know what? Go for it. Go ahead and write your first story. So I wrote Prayers from the Cellar because that was a story that I had kind of played around with years ago. And then I kind of fixed it up because, of course, whenever you look at your old anything, if you're an artist and you look at old drawings, you're going to see your growth. And the same thing happened with that story. I really liked the story, but it was very raw. And I think, I cleaned it up. And even now that I read it again, there's still some things that I would change, right? But now it's published. So, um, but there was a healing that came from me doing that, from me writing. And it was healing because that was something that I authentically wanted. When I was 17 years old, I was interviewed on Fox 26 Houston. And I was doing that interview for the HSEP, and we were working on a project that was like the Mars project. And I was the writer of that group. And I even said on television back then that I didn't want to be an engineer, even though I was in the engineering program. I wanted to be a writer someday. That's what I said. And I wish, since I am a writer, I wish I would have said, been more specific about that wish and say, like, I want to be able to live off my writing. I want to be able to give these stories to the world and concentrate my time on making them the best version that I can make them and send them out, and people buy them and enjoy them and share them. That's the dream. That's the goal, right? So, it was a healing process because I hadn't ever really taken a step to really publish anything. I mean, I wrote, I've been writing, as I told you. But that was like the first step to the actual self-healing journey. Before that, I was doing a lot of running away from stuff that I couldn't face or that I didn't want to deal with. And now Hurricane Harvey didn't help, right? And so we ended up moving not because the house was you know, in disarray or anything like that, but because the house withstood the storm, my landlord decided he was going to sell it, and that meant that I had to leave. So we ended up moving, and then 3 years later we moved again, and then a year later we moved here, and this is where we've been since. And so letting go of a lot of things. I sold my truck and I gave my car away, and I gave away like a lot, like almost the whole house full of furniture and accessories and everything else. I because I was in Tennessee, right? So all I had was like this little storage unit, and we we took all of the things that could fit in the little, not even all, but just a few things that could fit in that little U-Haul little trailer thing, because I had the truck at the time, and we put the rest of that stuff in there. And I had this guy who used to cut my grass. I called him and I was like, "Hey, come and get all this stuff out of the house. You can have it all." And he was like, "Really?" I was like, "Yes, just come. I need to clean this house. I need you to get everything out so I can get my deposit back." And that meant letting go of a lot of stuff. When we moved here, I had this table that this thing is sitting on and two lawn chairs that I was given as a gift. And there was nothing else in this house. And now this house is so full. I am trying to figure out, do I need to just throw this table out and get rid of some? Because I mean, it's just that the Most High has been with me. And I wasn't really ready to do the deep, deep work. I was doing work, but it was like not that. It was like slowly advancing me, but it was so slow because I was resistant to facing certain things about myself that I didn't want to see. But after I wrote the book, it felt so good to release some of that stuff. And Prayers from the Cellar is about an 11-year-old girl, but there's like a lot of me in that 11-year-old girl, and it's like the reason I could write it the way I did was because I remember 11 years old for myself being a very innocent, very clean and pure time. And I encapsulated that in the book. And so to be able to go back and feel those feelings, because if you're writing, you have to connect with your characters. And to be able to do that was very freeing. And it was actually the beginning of my deep dive into why do I respond to certain things. Like I know what some of my triggers are, like those are obvious, but there are also certain things that I feel like I was trapped in certain cycles of, and I just didn't really get until I started doing that book. And then I wrote another book, which was the second part to that one. And then I wrote another book, and it's like every time, with every book that I've written, I discover a little bit more about myself. And I'm also sharing with my readers trials and errors. So I would say one suggestion is for you to, if you're not going to write a book, start journaling. Start journaling, and you'll be able to see, like, as you do your deep dive, go back and read some of the things, and you can see how you might have been selfish in some of your thoughts. You might have been complaining about things that you didn't really necessarily need to complain about. Um, you will start to see that maybe you took somebody's action a certain way because of some trauma, and the person didn't even mean that. Or maybe you're walking around angry and holding on to something, and the person that you're holding it against, they don't even know that was a thing. Like they're just living their life. And so I think the pandemic slowed me down just enough to start doing this work and to bring me to a place where I feel like I am I've advanced some. Like, come on, like I told you, it's going to take forever to learn everything about me. And even when I feel comfortable about certain things, I'm still growing and changing, and I'm still experiencing things. So I might develop other ideas, right, later on. But I do feel like I have enough of a healing that has taken place in some of the major areas that would be a hindrance to me in a relationship. And what I'm hoping is that as you guys look at this and you're like wondering, like, oh, is this some kind of magic thing? It's not. And I will tell you this, if you're not looking at yourself honestly, it's going to take a long time for you to reach those things. I think that is the trick. That's the trick, to actually use your complete honest assessment. Meaning, if you look at your actions towards another person or towards an idea, and you say, okay, it's not me doing that, it's somebody else doing it, would you judge that other person harshly? And in my case, there were things that I would be like, oh yeah, I would have never, if that was somebody else, I would have been like, no way, you're wrong. You're foul, right? Like I'm saying, I'm looking at myself like, for real, this needs to change because this is not fair. I had to grow out of that. And now I'm still growing. But at this point, I went from being kind of one way to the opposite way. And now I'm kind of where I know how to balance those things a little bit better. Not saying perfect, but I'm balancing those things a little bit better. And so my hope is that I am going to find that other person, my twin flame, because the whole concept of a twin flame is that this is your counterpart somewhere in the world who's doing what you're doing. I guess not doing what you're doing, but like working out certain parts of their person like you are doing that work. And as you're doing it, they're doing it. And it's like y'all are coming together. The yin and the yang is happening because both of you are ready. And that's the kind of love I want. I don't want a one night stand. I don't even want somebody just to lay with on a frequent basis. I don't want that. Not if they're not my husband. And it's the standard of that I am holding on to. I'm going to make a next part to this. So shalom, and meet me on the next side.